What's up, kings and queens? It's Dan from Daft Previews, and I'm back for another comprehensive preview of all the NBA player props on the 9-game slate, which is right ahead. I had a winning day off this analysis. I hope you guys who followed did too. But you know how it is. Today, I'll take you through all the players, all the matchups. We'll discuss their props, their lines. With all this information and analysis, you can run parlays, multis. You can just run single bets. It's up to you. I encourage you to do your own research. But hopefully, I take that step out of the process out of the way for you. Let's go! We're kicking it off with the Orlando Magic versus the Detroit Pistons. Now, I haven't checked lineups. I've just got the lines, props, and some analysis for you. So be sure to check to see who's in and who's out. But firstly, let's have a look at Cade Cunningham from the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Magic, they allow the 5th most points to point guard. So we'll quickly start off with his points prop and we'll work our way through. His points line set at 20.5. He's gone under this in 3 straight games since he's come back from injury. Prior to that, though, he was scoring very well. In head-to-head matchups, he scored 21 points in his last matchup against the Orlando Magic earlier this season, 18 when he played them last year. Looking at his rebound prop, he's hit this in 5 of 10. He's hit this in 2 of his last 5. He's gone under his rebound line last 2 games against the Orlando Magic. And looking at his assists, he's been passing the ball very well since he came back. 12, 7, and 11 assists. He's hit this in 7 of his last 10. And he had 6 assists in his last matchup against the Orlando Magic, 10 the matchup prior. So just looking at that alone, I'm still not man enough to take his points, given he hasn't gotten there yet. He's been playing enough minutes. He's taken enough shots. He's just not shooting the ball very well at the moment. So, look, maybe 6 assists for them parlays, but yeah, not too confident in any of those right now. Let's have a look at Bogdanovic from the Detroit Pistons. I want to look at his points prop. And the reason being is the Magic allow the 3rd least points and rebounds to small forwards. And they also allow the least points to power forwards. So the 2 positions that this man's going to play are difficult matchups in terms of him scoring points. But he's hit this line in 7 of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5, averaging 24.8 points over his last 5 games. But in these head-to-head matchups with the Magic, you can see that he struggled. Scored 9 points against them earlier this year. He's gone under in 3 of his last 4 games against them. So I'm not saying to take the under. What I'm saying is don't take the over purely because his last 7 out of his last 10 games are in the green. Jumping into the next player, let's have a look at Markelle Fultz. So he's been back from injury for a little bit of time now. He does have a good matchup. The Pistons allow the 8th most points and the most assists to point guards over the last 30 days. Looking at his points prop, you can see that he's had, that's 4 games back from injury now for Markelle Fultz. 10, 14, 11, and 10. Obviously, there's a lot of red here. Line's probably a little bit lifted because of that matchup. Head-to-head wise, 11, 14, and 6 last time he's played against the Detroit Pistons. So I think that points line's probably about right. Assist-wise, he's been passing the ball okay. He's covered this in 4 of his last 5 games. Markelle Fultz, 3.5 assists. Check this out. Last 3 games against the Detroit Pistons has covered his assist line in all 3 of them. So this line is a little bit juiced, minus 142. But in saying that, I think it's juiced for a reason because I think Markelle Fultz covers his assist line today based off what I'm seeing at the moment. But of course, you need to dive a little bit further into that. Let's have a look at Jalen Suggs. Now, the Pistons allow the 3rd most points to shooting guards over the last 30 days. Jalen Suggs has been quite inconsistent. He's hit this in 3 of his last 10 and only 1 of his last 5. In head-to-head matchups, 21, nothing, and 18 points. So he has covered this line very well against the Pistons before. What this involves, I think before you bet on Jalen Suggs, you want to take a look at his minutes. You want to take a look at his shot attempts, shot percentage, because the matchup is definitely there. But is he going to get enough opportunities to cover this points line? That is the question. Who else is there? Franz Wagner. Let's have a look at Franz. Now, the Pistons allow the 8th most points and the 4th most assists to small forwards. Now, a lot of people have absolutely been banging on Franz's assist prop. So if it's still at 3.5, take the over. But chances are it's moved up because of the matchup and his form. Points-wise, he's covered his points line, 4 of his last 10 and 2 of his last 5. Against the Pistons, he's covered this in 3 of his last 5 games. He scored 27 points against them when they played earlier this season. Jumping to his assists, he's only hit this in 2 or 5 games against the Pistons. Had 3 assists against them in their matchup earlier this year. But check this out right here. Last 10 games, 6 out of 10. Last 5, he's hit this 4 times. So 4 consecutive games over this line. and the line is set at 4.5. So it's not 3.5 no more. It's moved up a little bit, but I still might take that. France, he's still covered that in 4 straight games. He's getting a lot of potential assists, that's for sure. And the Pistons allow the 4th most assists to small forward. So it's not a bad pick if you ask me, but obviously you need to dive in a little bit further to see what else is on there. Fellow Banchero, let's check this fella out. Now, Banchero, the Pistons, they allow the 5th most points to power forwards. Now, Banchero is an under king. His line set at 26.5. He does have a good matchup. Line set at 26.5. He's covered this in 13 of 49 games this year. That's 27%. He's covered it 2 out of his last 10 and 2 out of his last 5. So I'm not saying take the under. I'm saying this line is high, especially high considering what this man is capable of delivering on. Head-to-head matchups against the Detroit Pistons, he's gone under this line in 4 straight games. So he only averages 18 points per game against the Pistons, is what I'm saying. So I would have bet the under because I ain't built like that, but I'm still not comfortable taking his over or even an alt line for that matter. Rebound-wise, Banchero, 4 out of 10 and 2 of his last 5. He's only covered this in 2 or 5 games against the Pistons. Assist-wise, though, he has been passing the ball quite well. Check this out. His line set at 4.5. It's been at 4.5 for a very long time, but quite juiced, minus 154. I think he covers this. He's covered it 5 out of 5, 7 of his last 10 head-to-head matchups. He's gone under in his last 2 against the Pistons, but this recent form is a change in their style where Banchero and France are doing a lot of the creating on offense. So a lot of assists coming his way. Who else is that I may have missed? Jalen Duren, points and rebounds. Let's see if this man's due for a double-double or not. 12.5 points. He's hit this in 5 of 10, 2 of 5. If you wanted to muck around and get the alt lines out, so if you wanted him for 10 points, he's hit that in 9 of his last 10 games, 14 of his last 15 games, 26 of his last 30. Rebound-wise, line set at 11.5. He's hit this in 5 of 10 and 3 of his last 5. 1 of his last 4 against the Pistons, against the Magic. So looking at his rebounds, if you wanted to just go down to 10 rebounds, he's hit 10 rebounds in 24 of 33 games this year. 6 out of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5. So he's more likely to get 10 points than he is to get 10 rebounds, is all I'm going to say. Jaden Ivey, he's been a spark plug for the Detroit Pistons. Let's have a look. Points-wise, 7 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. He scored 15 points. Head-to-head matchups, he's gone under in his last 2 against the Orlando Magic. So, look, the Orlando Magic are a great defensive team. The Pistons are not. The Pistons do have better offensive players. The Magic do not. So it's going to be a difficult one. I'm sure there is some value in here, but a lot of players do have some good and bad matchups. Just got to sort through everything and try to find some gold. But as always, I'll have some pinned comments when I do finally make some plays, if you do choose to tell me. If not, hopefully this analysis does help you out. Let's jump into the next game. We're looking at the Phoenix Suns versus the Washington Wizards. Now, kicking it off with Devin Booker, because the Wizards allow the 4th most assists to point. Assist-wise, 5.5 is his line. Had 10 assists in his last game against the Atlanta Hawks, which was a great matchup for him. I remember calling that one out. But the Wizards do allow the 3rd most assists to shooting guards. You can get this at plus money at the moment, 5.5 assists. It is quite a bit of a stretch. I'd be comfortable with 4.5 for those parlays, but 5.5 as a single, yeah, I'm not too sure because he just might go on score a whole lot of points against his former team here. Grayson Allen, I think him and Bradley Beal kind of interchange. So who's the 2, who's the 3? Regardless, they're both wings, but the Wizards allow the 4th most points and the 2nd most rebounds to small forwards. Grayson Allen's been scoring quite well, 7 of his last 10. He's covered in 3 of his last 5. In terms of head-to-head matchups, he's covered this in 3 of his last 4 against the Washington Wizards. Rebound-wise, can do it, but line's at 3.5, minus 150. 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5, and 2 of his last 4 against the Wizards. Looking at his assists, he's covered this in 5 of 10, 2 of 5, and then 2 of his last 4 against the Wizards. So nothing on Grayson Allen that's screaming out to me right now. Let's have a look at Kevin Durant. Now, the Wizards allow the 6th most points and the 5th most rebounds to power forwards, but we'll check everything because KD's been doing it all. Firstly, when it comes to scoring, his line's at 26.5. He's covered this in 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. He's gone over 30 points in his last 2 games. Has had great success against the Washington Wizards, covering this line in 4 straight games against them. He scored 28 points against them earlier this season. Looking at his rebounds He's hit this in 5 of 10 and 3 of 5 head-to-head matchups. 2 of 4, 9-5 and 9-5 rebounds earlier this season. Assist-wise for Kevin Durant, he's been doing quite well as of late. 6 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, he's been covering his assist line. And in head-to-head matchups, he's good for at least 5 assists against the Washington Wizards. So keep that one in mind for your parlays, because this Phoenix Suns team sharing the ball quite well. The reason why Devin Booker's not racking up the assists, you saw it. Bradley Beal's been getting them, and KD's been getting them too. Let's have a look at Yusuf Nurkic. Now, the Wizards, they allow the second most points and the most rebounds to the center position over the last 30 days. Points-wise, he either has it or he doesn't. And this means they either go to him or they don't. He's covered his points line in 3 of 10 games, 2 of 5. Scored 6 points against them earlier this year. So it looks like they don't go to him against the Washington Wizards. But rebound-wise, might be a different story. He's hit this in 5 of 10 and only 1 of his last 5. But check that out. 17 rebounds in his last game against the Washington Wizards. That's something that I could get a taste of. Just want to have a look at these 3 games where he went under. I think that's where he played less minutes. Yeah. Playing less minutes than he normally would. But I think he's due for a big rebounding game here, Yusuf Nurkic. Who else is there? So there's nothing else from Phoenix that I wanted to go through. Let's have a look at some of these Wizards players. Tyus Jones, let's check him out. He's got a difficult matchup, I believe. Oh, no, he's got an easy one. The Suns allow the 3rd most points and the 6th most assists to point guard. So checking his points first. Lines at 13.5. He's covered a 3 and 10, 1 of 5. My Lord. 1 of 5 games he's covered against the Suns, but he did score 22 points against them earlier this season. Let's quickly check his assists. He went 22 points with 11 assists in that last matchup against the Suns. Looking at his last 10 games, he's covered his 8.5 assist line in 5 games. 5 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. So 11 assists against them last time. Interesting. 2010 game. That's pretty big for Tyus Jones. Let's have a look at Jordan Poole real quick. The Suns allow the 3rd most points and the 6th most assists to point guards. That was Tyus Jones. Jordan Poole doesn't have a matchup, really, so we're just checking form. His line's at 21.5. 21.5. He's hit this in 1 of 10 games. He's gone under in 5 straight. I don't know why this line is so high. Head-to-head matchups. He only scored 14 points against the Phoenix Suns the last time they matched up. But, yeah, someone in the comment section, please enlighten me. Why is Jordan Poole's line so high? Because, Kyle Kuzma is out. There you go. That makes a lot of sense. So, no Kyle Kuzma by the looks of it. Okay. No Kuzma. So, how does he play without Kuzma? Let's have a look. Have they played any? Kuzma hasn't missed any time this year. Okay, that's his first game. So this will be the first game we get to see Jordan Poole without Kuzma in a Washington Wizards uniform. Interesting. We shall see how this one goes. I think this man will probably have a bigger game, Denny Advia, given that there's no Kuzma. This guy can definitely pick up the slack. It's a bit more reliable. But his matchup is going to be difficult. The Suns allow the the 2nd fewest points and rebounds and the 5th fewest assists to the small forward position. His line has gone up despite with the Kuzma outage. He's hit this in 1 of 10, 0 of 5. Rebound-wise, 4 of 10. Line's at 7.5. And assist-wise, 3 of 10. So, look, it wouldn't shock me if this guy comes out and puts on a massive performance. But with these lines so high, I prefer not to think about it, to be honest. Who else do we have? Daniel Gafford. He's got a difficult matchup. So the Suns allow the 4th least rebounds to centers. Gafford's been rebounding quite well, though. His line's at 9.5. He's hit this in 3 of his last 5 games. Head-to-head matchups, he had 17 rebounds against the Phoenix Suns earlier this year, too. So that's not a bad shout at all. Marvin Bagley's still out, so yeah, I don't mind that for Daniel Gafford, looking at his rebounds. We're jumping into the Memphis Grizzlies versus the Boston Celtics. Who are we kicking it off with first? Let's have a look at Kristaps Porzingis. We'll go from top to bottom. Now, the Grizzlies allow the 2nd most rebounds to centers over the last 30 days. He's covered his rebound line in only 2 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5 games. 3 games against the Grizzlies. He's gone over once. That happened to be his last game against the Memphis Grizzlies this season, where he pulled down 8 rebounds. He also happened to score 26 points on them in that day. Last 10 games, he's covered this in 4 of 10, but 3 of his last 5. 15 points he's been hitting on quite a regular basis. I'm not sure about that 8.5. Could get a little bit difficult. The Grizzlies are a pretty good defensive team right now, so better think twice. Who else do we have? Drew Holiday. Let's have a look at his numbers. So with him, he always seems to smash his lines or go well under it. He's pretty much a no-sweat type of player, Drew Holiday. 6 of 10, 3 of 5. Scored 7 points in his last matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. Rebound-wise, 6 of 10, 3 of 5. Had 6 rebounds against the Grizzlies in that game. Assist-wise, 4 of 10, 2 of 5, and only had 4 assists against them. Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, he is pretty much the main scorer for the Memphis Grizzlies at the moment. He's chucking points up. His line's at 24.5, though. It's pretty low. I think that's the lowest that we've seen in about 3 weeks for Jaren Jackson Jr., 24.5. He's hit this in 7 of his last 10 and 4 of his last 5. 2 games against the Celtics, he's gone under both times. He scored 17 points in his last game, but he's taken a lot more shots now than he was back then. Rebound-wise, doesn't get that many. 3 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5, but he has rebounded well against the Boston Celtics, 7 and 8. Having a look at Jason Tatum. Now, the Grizzlies allow the 5th fewest assists to power forwards, so having a look at his assists, he's hit this in 5 of 10, 2 of 5, and he's only hit this in 1 of 3 against the Grizzlies, but it was the only time he did hit it was in their last game. Rebound-wise, his line's at 8.5. He's hit this in 4 of 10 games, 2 of his last 5, 9 rebounds against the Grizzlies last time. Points-wise, he's hit this in 3 of 10, 2 of 5, and he only scored 20 points against the Grizzlies last time. So I haven't bet on Jason Tatum very much all year, and I'm not going to start now based off those numbers. Let's have a look at Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, very similar to Tatum in the fact that I don't bet on them because they're inconsistent as hell, but he's hit this in 5 of 10, 2 of 5, and he's only scored 12 points in his last game against the Grizzlies. That probably means he'll score 30. Rebound-wise, 4 of his last 5, 7 of his last 10. He's hit this in 4 straight. Rebounds well against the Grizzlies, had 6 the last time they played each other. So could be something on offer there for Jaylen Brown. Assist-wise, 6 of 10, 3 of his last 5, and he went under last game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Derek White. Now, the Grizzlies allow the 4th fewest points to shooting guards. So interested to see how things have been going on the points front. He's hit this in 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. Scored 10 points in his last game against the Memphis Grizzlies. Rebound-wise, doesn't rebound much. Assist-wise, he's hit this in 3 straight, so 4 of his last 5. He's hit this in 2 out of 3 games against the Grizz. He had 4 assists in their last matchup, so that's an interesting one. Vince Williams. Now, the Celtics allow the 3rd fewest points to small forwards. He scored 6 points in his last matchup against them, but he was playing a different role. He is shooting the ball a lot more now. So line's at 12.5. He's hit this in 8 of his last 10 and 4 of his last 5 games, Vince Williams. Rebound-wise, 7 of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5 games. And assist-wise, 6 of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5. So points and rebounds, he's been gobbling up at quite a consistent basis. Yeah, points and rebounds, 8 of his last 10 games he's covered this line. The line is a lot lower than what it has been. I think we've seen lines of 20.5, 21.5 of Vince Williams Jr., but I think they're factoring the matchup here. Celtics can be a difficult team, but the Grizzlies are gritty as hell, so I don't mind this at all. Vince Williams to get it done against the Celtics, not bad. We jump into the Indiana Pacers and the Charlotte Hornets, and there's only a limited number of markets available at the moment, so this may be a quicker part of the video. We'll start with Nick Richards. So the Pacers allow the 5th fewest rebounds to centers. Looking at his rebound prop, it's at 10.5. He's hit this in 3 of his last 10 and 2 of his last 5. 4 games against the Indiana Pacers. He's gone under in 3 of them. Paid them twice this year, 10 rebounds and then 8 rebounds. So line set at 10.5 to get the under, which is where I think it's going to be. You're going to see odds are a little bit juiced at -130. But I do think the under and Nick Richards is probably the right play to make there. Having a look at Pascal Siakam. Now, no matchup to call out, but looking at his form, he's hit this line in 3 of 10, 2 of 5. His points line, he's gone over in 5 of 6 games against the Charlotte Hornets, though. So he does like to eat them up. But what am I thinking? I'm not even sure if I could take him confidently for 20 for parlays, but one I need to dive into a little bit more. Rebound-wise, line's at 6.5. 4 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. Covered this in 5 of his last 6 games against the Charlotte Hornets. This-wise, more green. 5 of his last 6 against the Hornets. But in his last 10 games, he's hit this in 7 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. So, look, I'm sure Pascal's going to produce on some level here. The Charlotte Hornets are not a great defensive team. I think it just depends on the matchups. Does Halliburton play? Does Mathurin play? Does Miles Turner play? So depending on who's in, then we know what kind of play to make for Pascal Siakam. So we'll just have to sit back and wait for that one. Let's have a look at Miles Bridges. Now, the Pacers allow the most points to power forward. So this guy's line is at 26.5. It's the highest. We've seen it for quite some time. For reference, when he versed the Oklahoma City Thunder, that was his last game. I think his line is 22.5. He only scored 9 points in that game, and his line still moved up to 26.5 because of this matchup. So he's hit this line in 2 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. Last matchup against the Pacers was this season. And this season, they've given up the most points to power forwards all year, and Bridges only scored 19 points anyway. So that 26.5 may be a little bit too high. I'm not too sure, but there's no LaMelo Ball in this one. Rebounds, he had 4 rebounds in his last matchup against the Pacers. His line's at 8.5. He's hit this in 5 of 10 and 3 of his last 5. And I think the last one there to look at is Brandon Miller. Now, the Pacers allow the 4th most points to shooting guards. So points-wise is what I'd be interested in taking for Brandon Miller. Line's at 22.5. He's hit this in 6 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. Head-to-head matchup, scored 21 points against the Indiana Pacers in their last matchup. And in that game, he played 32 minutes, took 17 shots. If we just filter this real quick over his last 10, we know that Terry Rozier is gone. He's playing 31 minutes a night on average and shooting the ball 15 times. So I think the line is just about right. I'm not willing to take Brandon Miller to take on that over just about yet. Jumping into the Los Angeles Clippers versus the Miami Heat. We're checking out Jimmy Butler, and that's because the Clippers allow the least rebounds and the 3rd fewest assists for small forwards, although they allow the 7th most rebounds and the 6th most assists to power forwards. So it's difficult to get the matchup part right, given we all know Jimmy was a 2. He's actually a 3, but he's in the starting lineup. He's a 4. So I think he plays more like a small forward, but let's go through all of his numbers anyway. He's been scoring the ball very well lately. Over his last 4, he's absolutely crushed this line. He's hit this in 4 of 5, 6 of 10. 2 matchups against the Clippers, 26 and 9. Those were last season, though. Rebound-wise, he's killed it in his last 4 games. 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. Assists, under 3 of his last 10 and 1 of his last 5. So definitely playing that 4-man role very well. Jimmy Butler is in good form. I keep saying I'm not betting on him until he hits the playoffs, but if he keeps doing shit like this, I might have to. It's a big game against the Clippers. I wouldn't be too surprised if Jimmy Butler steps up for this one. Want to look at James Harden in this one. And this matchup, I guess, goes for Westbrook as well. The Heat allow the 3rd fewest points to point guards. Now, James hasn't been scoring the ball very well this year. He's averaging 16.9 points per game. His line's at 15.5, though, so 1.5 points under his average. He's covered it in 5 of his last 10, but 2 of his last 5 games. Head-to-head matchups against the Miami Heat. He's gone under in his last 2. I think the main one that counts is their last game where he scored 15 points because he was a member of the Los Angeles Clippers in that game. Rebound-wise, 6 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. He had 4 rebounds in his last matchup against the Heat. And assist-wise, 5 of his last 10, but only 2 of his last 5. He had 10 assists in that last game against Miami. I want to have a quick look at Terrence Mann, purely because the Heat allow the 7th most points to shooting guards, but I think that matchup really counts for Norman Powell as well. So whenever his lines become available, that might be one to look at. But he scored 12 points in his last game against the Miami Heat. He's covered this line in 6 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. So the matchup is there. He's done it against the Heat in the past. The line's only 6.5. He can make a 3-pointer and 2 layups, and you're good. So that could be an interesting one. But let's get into some of these big boys. Let's have a look at Bam Adebayo. Points-wise, line's at 17.5. Covered in 4 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. But he's played very well against the Clippers in the past. Scored 21 points in their last matchup. Rebound-wise, he had 15 rebounds in that game. He's been rebounding quite well. 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. Assist-wise, 7 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5, and he had 4 assists against the Clippers. So I think points and rebounds are really looking pretty good for Bam. Check that out. He's covered his points and rebound prop by a long margin in his last 3 games against the Clippers. Looking at his last 10, he's hit this 5 times. He's only hit this one of his last 5 games, but Clippers probably missing Zubac. He's a game time decision, I think. So interesting. I think Bam can get it done there. I don't like betting on Bam, but I know he's capable. Terry Rozier, let's have a look at his points. 4 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. Scored 18 in his last matchup against the Clippers. And assist-wise, 4 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. Had 7 assists against the Clippers in his last matchup. Have a look at Kawhi Leonard. This guy's been efficient as hell. Scored 24 points against the Miami Heat in their last matchup. He's gone over his points line here in 3 consecutive games, 30, 31, and 33. Looking at his boards, 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, and assists, 6 of his last 10 and 1 of his last 5. So points line is probably the only one you'd be considering right now. Big game. Might be difficult for the Clippers to generate some offense. So Kawhi and some ISOs, yeah, I could see that happening. But let's have a look at Paul George. PG's points line is 18.5. He's covered this in 4 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. Scored 23 points in his last matchup against the Miami Heat, though. Rebound-wise, lines at 4.5. 6 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. Had 3 rebounds against Miami last time. He had 2 assists against them last time. He's covered his assist line in 6 of 10 and 3 of his last 5. So I think where there's lines like this, for players like this, the only time I really bet on them is where they have a great matchup like Detroit or Toronto, where you can really ladder up and get some excellent value out of PG. So, but yeah, won't be touching PG in this game. Tyler Hero, his points line, 3 out of the last 10, 1 out of his last 5. Points-wise, he hasn't really broken out since Terry Rozier arrived. They've been sharing the ball quite nicely. Rebounds, 6 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. Had 6 rebounds in his last matchup against the Clippers. 12 points against them too. 6 assists in his last game against the Clippers. 4 out of his last 10. They all just happen to be in his last 5. So he's covered his assist line 4 out of his last 5. And his rebound line in only 2 of his last 5. I was thinking rebounds and assists for Tyler Hero. But yeah, rebound and assists, he's covered in 7 of his last 10. But I think it's going to be tight. Jumping into the Houston Rockets versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I apologize if I look flustered. It's 40 fucking degrees Celsius out here today. I'm struggling. I've got no aircon in this room. So I'm putting myself through the gauntlet of pain just to get this preview out for you guys. But let's talk about some basketball. Fred VanVleet. Now, the Wolves allow the 7th least points to point guards over the last 30 days. Looking at Fred, in his last 10, he's covered his points on in 5 of 10, 2 of his last 5. Last game against the Timberwolves, he only scored 7 points. He also had 1 rebound and 8 assists. So covered his assists quite well against the Timberwolves in the past, but in his last 10, he's covered it 6 times. In his last 5, he's covered this line twice. Let's have a look at Rudy Gobert. We want to have a look at his blocks because, he can get some of those. Lines at 2.5. Hasn't been getting many of those lately, so that was a stupid idea. Let's look at his rebounds. 12.5 is his line. He's hit this in 6 of 10, 3 of 5. Head-to-head matchups, 11, 16, and 12 rebounds in his last game against the Houston Rockets. Points-wise, he scored 13 points against them. In his last 10, he's averaging 15.5, covering in 6 of 10 and 3 of his last 5 games for Rudy Gobert. Let's have a look at Şengün. Now, the Wolves allow the least rebounds to centers and the 6th most assists. I'm going to look at his points prop real quick. 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. There's his points against the Minnesota Timberwolves. He seems to do okay. Doesn't hit 20 points often, though. Looking at his rebounds, 8 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. He's finished over 10 rebounds. Head-to-head matchups, struggled. Look at that. 7, 8, 16, 7, and then 5 rebounds. What's about his assists look great? Not the best. Had 1 assist in his last matchup against the Timberwolves. Looking at his last 10, though, check this out. He's covered this in 9 of his last 10 games, 4 of his last 5. His assist prop, Şengün. So, and the Wolves do allow quite a few assists, 6 most assists to centers. So that could be on. Just because he got 1 assist against them last year doesn't mean it's a bad pick. I don't mind that at all. Let's have a look at Jalen Green, actually. Let's have a look at Jalen Green. Now, the Wolves allow the 7th least points. Sorry, I was reading that wrong. The Wolves allow the 3rd fewest points and the 4th fewest assists to shooting guards. So difficult matchup for Jalen Green. Points-wise, 6 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, 20 points in his last matchup against the Timberwolves. So the matchup don't matter to Jalen Green, apparently. Looking at his assists, 2 assists in his last matchup against the Wolves this season, 5 of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5. Let's have a look at Anthony Edwards while we're on shooting guards. 26.5 is his line. He's covered this in 5 of 10 and 2 of his last 5. Against the Rockets, 44, 31, 24 in his last matchup against them. Rebound-wise, had 3 rebounds against them. His line's at 5.5, so he's gone over 1 of his last 10 games. What's the bet he's got a good matchup here? Let me just check this real quick. That's right. So the Rockets allow the 4th most rebounds to shooting guards. He's only averaging 4 rebounds a game in his last 10. His line's set at 5.5. 3 rebounds. So he hasn't rebounded that well against the Houston Rockets before. So, yeah, I'm not too sure whether to say his rebounds based off this. Assist-wise, 3 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. He's gone under his assist line in all his games against the Houston Rockets. So what I'm automatically thinking is, what about an under in his rebounds and assists? He's gone under that in 5 consecutive games against the Houston Rockets. He's gone under it in 7 of his last 10 games, Anthony Edwards. And if you take the under 10.5, you can get this at plus money. So, look, this is something that I would need to look in further before I take it. But just at first glance, it looks pretty good to me. Jabari Smith Jr. Now, the Wolves allow the 2nd fewest rebounds to power forwards, but we'll go through everything. Points-wise, he's covered this in 8 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, and 1 of his last 2 against the Timberwolves. He scored 16 points against them earlier this year. Rebound-wise, 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5, 1 out of 2 against the Wolves, and he had 9 rebounds against them. So, Jabari Smith Jr., I think, what's his rebounds like? Points and rebounds, perhaps? Yeah, it's not too bad. Points and rebounds, 6 of his last 10. He had 25 of these suckers against the Timberwolves earlier this year. I think that's not such a bad play either. I think this Minnesota Timberwolves probably good statistically, but when I watch them play, I ain't too impressed. Just checking to see if there's anyone I may have missed. Dylan Brooks, he was a good person to bet on earlier in the year. His line's at 11.5. He's hit this in 7 of 10, 4 of 5, and 3 of 4 against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Dylan Brooks. Karl Anthony Towns, that's somebody that I missed. Points-wise, 5 of 10, 2 of his last 5, 1 out of his last 2. Scored 22 points against the Houston Rockets. Rebound-wise, he had 8 rebounds against them in his last 10. He's covered his line in 4 of 10, 3 of 5. Assist-wise, 4 of 10 and 3 of 5 as well. Had 6 assists against the Houston Rockets. I don't like Karl Anthony Towns. I don't like his voice. I don't like the way that he plays. And I don't like betting on him. So I shall be avoiding Towns for this one. Jumping into the Toronto Raptors versus the OKC Thunder. So let's kick it off with SGA. Why not? Let's look at this consistent bastards, points, lines, and props real quick. On SGA, the Raptors are now the 2nd most assists to point guards, but the 6th fewest points. His line set at 33.5. He's gone under this in 8 out of his last 10 games. And in his last 2 matchups against the Raptors, he's gone under it too. But he does consistently hit over 30 points, which is just wild. Assist-wise, he's gone over in 4 of 10, 2 of 5. He's gone under his assists in his last 2 games against the Raptors. But more recently, has been passing that rock real good. Looking at his rebounds, 5 of 10, 2 of 5, gone under in 2 straight against the Raptors as well. Looking at Emmanuel quickly from the Toronto Raptors. Now, the Thunder allow the 5th fewest assists to point guards, but looking at Emmanuel Quickly's points, is that right? This man's been struggling. So when he first landed in Toronto, my man was going off. Let me have a look. So you check that out. He was getting some buckets. And then he's just fallen off a cliff as of late. If these numbers are right, hasn't been scoring the ball well at all. What's he doing? Oh, he's playing limited minutes. All right. Limited minutes, not scoring much, but 18.5 points. Does that mean there's no more minutes restriction for Emmanuel Quickly? I'm not too sure, but yeah, that doesn't look good. And assist-wise, I don't like what I'm seeing here. Surely he's getting more than 1 assist. Nah, this is reading a different player. That's what's happening right here. Let me start this shit again. There it is. Fuck me. I'm going crazy. Points-wise, there it is. 4 of 10, 1 of 5, 2 of his last 3. So there's a bit of quickly. And assists, 6 of 10, 4 of 5. His last 3, he's been passing the rock like a madman. So that's not the worst play in the world, but I think the matchup's going to be difficult for him. 5th fewest assists allowed to point guards. Wanted to know, is RJ Barrett playing? His game time decision in that one, but RJ Barrett, he has a good matchup. The Thunder do allow a lot of points to shooting guards, so depending on what his prop is, we might have a look at that one. Chet Holmgren, let's have a look at him. How's Chet been going? Points-wise, he's hit this line in 1 of 10, 1 of 5. He's averaging 13 points per game. That's not impressive. Rebound-wise, 5 of 10, 3 of his last 5. And assists, 6 of his last 10 and 2 of his last 5. So Chet's scoring definitely been down. Let's have a look at Scotty Barnes. Now, Scotty Barnes, the Thunder allow the 4th most rebounds to power forwards. Scotty Barnes does my head in with rebounds, to be honest. He only does them in the 4th quarter by the looks of it. But points-wise, he's covered 5 of 10. 4 of his last 5, though. Last matchup against OKC, he scored 19 points. So that's promising. Rebound-wise, look at that. 2 of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. So his lines are always quite high too, but he doesn't seem to get there a lot of the time. Looking at his last 30 games, he's only covered this 12 times. Assist-wise, does pass the ball quite well. 6 of 10, 3 of 5. 6 assists in his last matchup against the OKC Thunder. Josh Giddey, the Raptors allow the 6th most points to shooting guards. Now, I wouldn't take Josh Giddey for those points. I would be looking at someone like Isaiah Joe when his lines come up. The chances are the OKC Thunder blow these guys out. Joe gets a little bit more minutes. Oh, Joe's out, actually. What am I talking about? Cason Wallace. He could be a good play. They're rookie. But Giddey's got under his points line 9 times out of his last 10. Rebound-wise, he's hit it half the time. And assist-wise, he's gone under 8 of his last 10. So looking at his PRA, really, for Josh Giddey, he's only got over this twice in his last 10 games. And there's no reason to say that he'll go over it against the Raptors. He's had plenty of opportunities. He's capable of a lot, but hasn't been delivering, to be honest. So Josh Giddey might fade you, bruh. Who else is there? Bruce Brown. He's had a few good games, depending on what stat you pick him for, but line set at 10.5. You can see he's capable of 18, 19 points. He's hit this as 6 of 10, 2 of 5. He's gone over in 3 straight games against the OKC Thunder. Rebound-wise, has rebounded quite well against the OKC Thunder. And in his last 4 games, he's been killing it. So he's gone over in 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. And assist-wise, 5 of his last 10 and 2 of his last 5. So points and rebounds is something that I'd probably consider looking at for Bruce Brown. He's been doing that quite well. But even in head-to-head matchups, he's cleared this quite easily in his last 3 games against OKC. So, yeah, Bruce Brown, points and rebounds, especially if he's the starting shooting guard. I don't mind this bet at all. Brucey Brown. Just taking a mental note. All right, good. We got you. Let's jump into the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Utah Jazz. Want to start off with my man Colin Sexton. Now, the Bucks allow the 2nd most points to point guards. Everybody knows that. But looking at his points, Colin Sexton, he's covered this in 8 of 10, 3 of his last 5 games. Last matchup against the Bucks, he scored 19 points. And in that game, he only shot the ball 13 times and he only played 18 minutes. These days, Colin Sexton is playing 27.9 minutes per game in his last 10, and he's taking 15.5 shot attempts. So with the extra usage, with the extra time, I don't mind that for Colin Sexton. He's also been passing the ball quite well, racking up these assists. He's pretty much got 5+ assists in 10 straight games. But he's covered his assist line in 5 of 10 and 3 of his last 5. He only had 3 assists against the Milwaukee Bucks. But look, you're going to score 18, 19 points in 18 minutes. You're not going to get many assists anyway. So I don't mind Colin Sexton. Once again, he's got a great matchup. Bucks are on a back-to-back. Let's go. Speaking of Collins, let's talk about John Collins. So the Bucks allow the 4th most points to centers, and I've had a bit of success on John Collins recently. He's had some success against the Bucks. He's covered this line in 3 straight games against them. He's covered it in 6 of his last 10 and 4 of his last 5 games. I don't hate that. I like that for John Collins. Rebound-wise, he's been doing well there too. 6 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, but he's had difficult times against the Milwaukee Bucks. So John Collins' points, I like it. I like it a lot. Let's have a look at Laurie Markkinen. Now, Laurie hasn't had much success against the Bucks. 18, 21 points, 14 rebounds when he last matched up with them. Let's look a little bit deeper. In his last 10 games, averaging 8.5 rebounds, his line set at 8.5. He's gone over in 7 of 10, 3 of his last 5. Points-wise, 6 of his last 10 and 3 of his last 5 games. Who else is there? Giannis. You can't have a Bucks game without a Giannis conversation. His line set at 33.5. Back-to-back, he just scored 48 against the Dallas Mavericks. He's gone under 8 of his last 10. He's gone under his last 2 games against the Jazz. Rebound-wise, he's only hit this in 4 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. He went under his rebounds in the last 2 against the Jazz. And assist-wise, he's been doing that quite well. 6 of his last 10, but only 2 of his last 5. But 11 assists in each of his last 2 games against the Utah Jazz. So Giannis for assists? Shit, I think so. I don't hate that at all. 6, ladder it up to 10. Why not? I think Giannis assists could be on here. Let's have a look at Dame. Points-wise, the line's at 27.5. He's hit this in 4 of 10, 1 of his last 5. Hasn't versed the Utah Jazz as a member of the Bucks, but he has scored 60 points against them before. Looking at his rebounds in his last 10, 6 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5 he's covered in. And assist-wise, the line set at 8.5 assists. Well, that's fair enough, because the Jazz, they allow the 3rd most assists to point guards. My Lord, this is a hard line, though. Good gracious. 2 out of his last 10, 1 of his last 5. He's averaging 6.8 assists on the season, and the line is set at 8.5. Which is pretty crazy. So, yeah. Look, I wouldn't be surprised if Dame gets 10 assists, but I'm not taking that over. Sorry about it. That's too high for me. Let's go. Let's move to the next game. Closing it off, it's the Portland Trailblazers versus the Denver Nuggets. So, let's start with Nikola Jokic. The Blazers allow the 9th most assists to centers. Now, Jokic just happens to be the best passing big man who ever lived. He's covered this in 6 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. And against the Trailblazers, he's covered it in 5 consecutive games, averaging 10.2 assists. Do we need to explain any further? Because this is going over. Jokic, over 8.5 assists. Book it in right now. Actually, the odds are a little bit low. Don't book it in yet, but have a look at it. It's a great pick. Let's have a look at his points. And he's covered this in 4 out of his last 5 against the Portland Trailblazers. He's covered in 7 of his last 10 games, 4 of his last 5. That seems pretty obvious too. Rebound-wise, he's covered this in 5 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5, and he had 22 rebounds in his last matchup against Portland. I think that was only 2 days ago. So they're doing that back-to-back thing. But look, I wouldn't put it past him to have a big game once again and throw down another triple-double against them. I don't find it hard. It's just weird to back a team and they've just played another team and there's time for players to adjust. It's like we're in the playoffs, so that could be a little bit difficult. But anyway, I'm going to start blabbering on for a bit. Jeremy Grant's a game-time decision for this one. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is as well. So let's have a look at Jamal Murray. Now, the Blazers allow the 7th most points and the 2nd most rebounds to point guards. So, points-wise, he scored 13 points in their last matchup. He's covered this line in 5 of his last 10. Rebound-wise, he had 9 rebounds against the Portland Trailblazers just 2 days ago. He's rebounded quite well against them in the past as well. So Jamal rebounds, that could be a good play. Assist-wise, he had 10 assists in that last game against them. And he's covered his assist line in 4 straight games against the Blazers. So looking at his last 10, he's covered in 7 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. So Jamal Murray assists could be on for something right here. DeAndre Ayton, I think he was quiet in the last game. Yeah, he finished with 8 points. He was on this hot streak, only scored 8 points. Head-to-head matchups, yeah, it's up and down, but that was his first matchup against them wearing a Portland Trailblazers uniform. Rebound-wise, line's at 7.5. He only had 3 last time. Assist-wise, who plays DeAndre Ayton for assists anyway? Aaron Gordon, the Blazers allow the 6th fewest rebounds to power forwards. Assist-wise, though, got 5 in his last matchup against them. Rebound-wise, well, he went under. He only had 4 rebounds, so true that. Points, he had 18 points against the Blazers, covered in 5 of 10, 3 of his last 5, and 3 of his last 5 games against Portland. Just checking to see if there's anybody else of interest. Michael Porter Jr., points-wise, 5 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. He scored 13 points in that last matchup against Portland. Rebound-wise, he only had 4 boards. I mean, no one takes his assists anyway. Brogdon, he can fill up a stat sheet. He does okay. Points-wise, he scored 11. I don't think he shot the ball very well, though. Let me double-check this. 5 for 13. Yeah, it's pretty bad. 7 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. Rebounds, 7 of his last 10, 4 of his last 5. He had 8 rebounds against the Denver Nuggets in that last game. And then assist-wise, he's covered this in 90% of his last 10 games. 5 out of his last 5. And he had 6 assists in his last game against the Denver Nuggets. So what I think is probably a really good play is just taking his rebounds and his assists. Because we know he can rebound well against the Denver Nuggets. He had 14 rebounds and assists against them last time. Or you could just take his rebounds. I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking at the moment. This heat is really starting to get to me. Anthony Simons, he'll be the last one, and then I'll get the fuck out of here because I'm sweating bullets. Lines at 24.5. He's covered this in 4 of his last 10, 2 of his last 5. 29 points against the Denver Nuggets in their last matchup. Rebound-wise, 7 of his last 10, 3 of his last 5. He had 4 rebounds against the Denver Nuggets when they last matched up 2 days ago. And assist-wise, he had 4 assists against them, but he has covered this line in 7 of his last 10 and 4 of his last 5. God damn, it's hot, but I hope you guys like that. That was probably quick. I don't know if it was quick. No, time's just moving fast for me. So that's a wrap on the preview of all 9 games. I hope that was interesting. I hope you love that. As you know, props.cash is what I use. Discount is still available for you. 25% off your first month if you sign up using the code Daft25. The other thing you can do, I know a lot of you guys have done this already. There's a link in the description box below. There's a spreadsheet that you guys can download. It's got all the NBA player prop factors that you need to take into consideration before you make a bet. If you do like the detail, you can download that. That's completely free as well. But things are starting to blow up. We had a lot of views in that last video, a lot of new subscribers. So welcome to everybody else who's joined. I'll catch you guys in the next one, though. I appreciate you if you made it this far. Peace.
Up to the channel cause your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice and the daily. It's all free, you don't even have to pay me.